Hello everybody, this is the feature video for user story number 2818. This user story is using D3 and JavaScript to display mortgage information, and the description is, as a user, I would like to see the mortgage information displayed using modern technology. Modern technology that we're talking about here is the D3 library in JavaScript. D3 library is a library that actually performs transformations on HTML DOM elements through the use of data. So D3 is going to allow us to visualize data through the use of HTML element transformations. What this means is that it's going to append and edit elements on the DOM tree and through the use of data. So it's going to take in data and perform some kind of transformation to the DOM tree. Now that might not sound very intuitive, but I'll go over it right now. So the first part of getting D3 to work on our Angular application was to make a service for our D3 library, and this service is actually calling and loading the D3 script. This service is available to any Angular directive, controller, module that any other developer would want to use. So this module is reusable. So our custom directives, like we're about to see. So the first part was to make this module and to register it with our application in our index.html right here. Then the second part was to actually create the custom directive. Now the way we're going to use our D3 service is through the use of directives. D3 bars, which is going to be a bar chart directive, has the D3 service as a dependency. And if we look at the actual view, this is how the element looks like in HTML. It's just a div with attributes, D3 bars, bar height, and bar padding. And this is actually what's these attributes are actually going to be used by our D3 directive to format the bar chart. So moving on to the directive, the way it works is that first it's going to parse the arguments passed into it, so bar height and bar padding. Then it's going to create an SVG element. This SVG element is actually what's going to contain our bar chart. This is the data that I was talking about. So this data is going to be able to be reused. So right now, this is just some placeholder data for testing purposes. Once the mortgage calculator tool is complete, the bar chart will actually act on the data returned by the mortgage calculator tool. Our directive is also watching for the resize event. So whenever the browser resizes, our bar chart will resize dynamically. Another cool thing about using Angular directives. Then a render function. This is what actually adds the rectangle elements and formats the elements in our SVG element. So the first thing we have to do is actually calculate color and dimensions for our bar chart, and then set the height attribute for our SVG element. After this, we actually create the individual rectangles for each property field. And this is done right here. So our SVG element selects the rectangle elements, adds the data that we pass on to it, then it enters the HTML DOM tree. It appends the rectangles with the attributes ID, height, width, X, and Y. These IDs are unique and they come from the data name. So each bar is going to have D3 underscore rectangle underscore data name. So property 1, property 2, property 3, or property 4. This is to make testing easier and for styling as well. We fill the color, and then this is actually what creates the bar chart. So if we go to our page, I already have it open up here, and we go to our mortgage calculator page, we can see our bar chart. Now we can test the resize feature, making it as small as we can, a little bit wider. Widest. And that's our D3 bar chart.js. Moving on to the testing, this user story was tested using Selenium. Here is our unit test class. And this is actually testing three different things. It's testing that the D3 bar chart directive exists on the div with the correct attributes. It's testing that the bar chart.js or the custom directive is actually returning the SVG that we need, or the SVG that's actually going to display the bar chart. Then it's going to make sure that each of the bar charts, each of the individual rectangles in the bar chart are displayed correctly. So if we run our test script, you can see that everything is being executed correctly. It's our first test, pass. Second test passed, and a third test. Passed. Awesome. So we ran 3 tests, everything's okay. Our bar chart is being displayed correctly by our custom directive, and our custom directive is correctly using the D3 service. So if we go over here and we check our Git code, we can see that our bar chart.js was implemented correctly on our branch. It's going to be the mortgage calculator branch on Rafael Fernandez's Git fork of the Breeze desktop application. Bar chart.js is implemented here. You can also check that our module is implemented correctly. Here's our module and our import statement. Where is it? Right here. So yeah, that is all for user story number 2818. Once the mortgage calculator tool is complete, the data field will change in bar chart.js. But the coolest thing about D3 is that that's the only thing that needs to change, the data. Once everything else has been set up, the rendering, the only thing we need to change really is the data, and this directive can be reused anywhere in Angular application. So anyone else, like once this is merged onto master, anyone else can just use the D3 bars directive and make their own bar chart with whatever height and bar padding that they would want to.